Hello, and welcome to Young Global Leaders, where we get the chance to hear from young people hailing from all around the world, sharing about themselves, their accomplishments, and their vision for a better world. Recently, I had the privilege of leading a group of about 100 young people from over 40 countries to 7 global regions on an 8-month global gap year program. Most of them had just graduated from high school, though we also had a few older students. During our 8+ months together, the students formed a deeply loving and supportive community. Anyone could see that they had built something unique and inspiring. Through my eyes as a teacher, coach, and global leadership consultant, what I saw was unlike anything I'd seen before. When the program ended, I desperately wanted to keep in touch with these students and to share their example with the world. So I started the Young Global Leaders podcast. Today we hear from Denis Mwangangi. Welcome, Denis Mwangangi, our first guest. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's really nice to see you after all those months we had together on the road, and to start to get a sense of how things are going for you since the program ended. I'll start just by asking you, where are you joining us from today?
Yeah, I'm joining you from the outskirts of Nairobi, little suburb by the corner in Kenya, right here in East Africa. So it's really nice to be back home after a long while traveling around. So yeah.
Good. Well,
It's
I
really
appreciate
cold
you
here.
joining us. Is it cold because it's winter there, right?
Yeah, it's winter here.
How cold is it?
I think it's like 11 degrees. It doesn't sound cold, but usually the temperature is much, much higher. So everyone is just, you go on the road, everyone is just cooped up in a sweater, a jumper, and hats. It's not really that cold. Like, it's not like the level of winter that you might think of, but according to like the temperature here, it's pretty low. Yeah.
For our listeners who do Fahrenheit, that's 52 degrees Fahrenheit, which, yes, certainly in the dead of winter is not cold for a lot of folks on the planet. But I mean, when we were there in February and March, and those were maybe the low temperatures were maybe 11, and it was getting up to mid to high 20s during the day. So in Fahrenheit, that's low 80s to mid 80s. So it's definitely cooler now than it was when we were there.
Yeah.
And it's also, so just for the listeners, we're recording this early afternoon in Pacific time, which is where I am. So what is it now? A little after 11 p.m. your time?
Yeah, it's exactly 11:11. What a coincidence.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for staying up late. Is this your normal schedule?
Usually I try to be in bed around midnight, so it's still within my schedule. Usually I like going on Substack right now and just reading a few things before I go to bed.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, then let's get into the main content of our podcast here, of our conversation, and then hopefully we can get you off towards bed within your regular time frame. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, what makes you you?
Well, you can start by a name, but I think more than just my name being Dennis. Funny thing, Dennis is actually written with a single N, not double, like it's usual. So that's one quirky thing. I think I'm a very curious person. I love being engaged in different themes. I am very much in touch with the STEM side, but I do a bit of writing. I do a bit of sketching once in a while when things are kind of calm. And I also love journeys of looking inward and seeing where I can improve myself, whether it's emotionally or spiritually. And generally, I just love talking to people and sharing what I know. So that's one thing that makes me me.
One thing you didn't mention, which I noticed about you very, very early during our time together, is that you're extremely funny. Like, The first time I saw you on stage, I think it was in New York City. I don't remember this. Do you remember what the specific context was for you getting up on stage for the first time?
Yes, yes. This was actually a big coincidence. I wasn't supposed to be on stage. Um, the night before, we had gotten this idea in the like morning program internship that we could do like a bingo session. And so
Mm.
I was like, you know what, let me just try it out. I never even played bingo before. So it was a really fun experience doing it for the first time. And it was very memorable.
I just remember because I barely knew you at that time. I barely knew any of the students at that time because that was our first of the 7 regions that we visited,
Yeah.
and I just remember thinking, who is this kid? He is so hilarious. Um, do you identify as a funny person? I mean, you had the level of talent where I thought like this Dennis could be a professional comic if he chose that road. Like he's that good. He's that natural. Do you think of yourself as particularly funny?
No, I don't think I regard myself as someone who's like a comedian. I think I just try and go with the flow and see where it takes people. And I think that's what brings out the humor. I think it's just being natural and going with the flow, not having like a particular plan.
Well, I can just say as um, from a user experience perspective, um, that I just really enjoyed your humor throughout the year.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
Truly
no problem.
flattering.
Well, next question I've got for you is, can you share with our listeners just something about the global adventure that you were on recently?
Yes, yes. So close to about a year ago, I got this awesome opportunity to join a program, Beret Scholars. So it's a gap year program that takes roughly around 100-ish students around the world, 7 different regions, on a journey of not just global like adventure, but also learning from different people from very high impact industries, and also just people who are experts in their field just coming to share what they know, and getting to rub up against them was like one of the best parts of the program. And also the student body is from 40 plus countries, and that was one of my best years yet.
Great. One thing that I recall when I first saw your name, so there was a spreadsheet that had names of students who were fully enrolled and students who were contemplating enrolling. And I don't remember what stage you were in, but one of the bits of information was passport number. And then what stuck out about you was you didn't have a passport. And I know I remember there was a lot of concern on the team about like, what are we going to do about this kid because he doesn't have a passport yet? So can you tell us about how you swung that? Because it seems like you worked a miracle to get not only a passport but then to get a visa to the United States. Can you tell us a little bit about how you actually managed to do that?
Yes, I think I've told this is one of my favorite stories to tell. Um, I think it was actually um, this time last year, maybe like a week farther back. I think it was June, last week of June. Um, I had applied to Beret close to a year earlier than that. That was December 2023. And it actually gotten waitlisted. And I got off the wait list in June, and the program was supposed to start in September 9th. Not
Yeah.
only did I not have a passport, I didn't have an ID, which like you needed to apply for a passport. So I got the acceptance email, and I looked at it. I was so happy, and then I was like, "Oh, I don't have any documents with me. This is going to be an uphill task." And one of the first calls we had was with Michelle, and she was like, Dennis, I don't know how you're going to do this, but it's not looking good for you. So I think the next thing I did, I immediately went to the government offices. I applied for an ID very quickly. I got it in about 2 weeks. And then I applied for a passport. That took way longer because getting a passport is not easy in Kenya. Um, I had to really sell my case to the people and be like, hey, look, I have this awesome opportunity lined up. It's happening in less than a month, and I desperately need to get a passport. I already have the remaining documents. So on telling them that, I didn't get a passport in like the time I expected. On the website it says 2 weeks, but we know government offices don't work like that. And so I went back and says, hey, it's been 2 weeks. Is it ready? And this guy takes me to another guy who I don't know. And they tell me your passport is nowhere close to ready. But we know your passport number.
That's counterintuitive.
They know my passport number that's going to be on the actual passport. But if I choose to go and apply for a visa with the passport number, it would be a leap of faith because I didn't know if I apply for the visa and then I show up to the interview with a passport that has a different passport number, I would have to do it over again. And so I decided, you know what, let me just take a leap of faith. Let me just go with what this guy tells me and then try and do it. So I went to the US Embassy website. I applied for the visa for an appointment, actually. And the nearest date for the appointment was in January 22nd, 2025.
Several months too late.
Yes. And I called Michelle like that evening and I was like, Michelle, what's going on here? Like, why is the wait list like more than 6 months long? And Michelle tried to like get into contact with the embassy, but they didn't respond. And I remember getting an idea to just go on Reddit, check what people do in these scenarios. And on a post with like 2 upvotes, this guy was saying that if you go to the embassy's website at 3 a.m., sometimes it glitches and it gives you like an appointment time that's closer. So every day for the next 2 weeks, I was religiously waking up at 3 a.m. checking the website. And I moved from January to December to November. And then I got an appointment date on September 2nd, which was 7 days before Brave started. And so I was like, wow, okay, I couldn't get any date sooner than that. So I had to take that date. And I remember 3 days before going for my appointment, another student from Bari had gone to the embassy and her visa application had gotten denied. And so I was panicking. I was like, wow, okay, so I've gone through all this effort and I might not end up getting it. But luckily I was able to get it. I passed the interview and they said you can come back when you get an email that your passport is ready for collection. So it was Tuesday. The flight that had planned to buy a ticket for was on Sunday. And the US Embassy doesn't open on weekends. So Friday was the last date. So it was Friday, it was 3 p.m. I had not gotten an email. The embassy closes at 5 p.m. And I was panicking. And exactly at 4 p.m., I got the email that my passport was ready to pick it up. So I just went ahead.
And this was Friday, September what?
September 7th.
Wait a minute. What was the date that you were supposed to arrive in the United States? Wasn't that around the 7th of September?
Really? No, I think it was September 9th was the day of arrival. Okay. September 6th, I think. Yeah, September 6th.
Still really close, like within 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, September 6th, actually, not 5th.
Okay.
Because Monday was my appointment date on 2nd. Yes, 6th. And after I got my passport, this is another crazy thing that happened. I went to buy a flight ticket, and there was one airline flying out of Nairobi that had a layover to Boston, and that would make me arrive on the intended date. And it was an Emirates airline flight, and there was one seat left.
Oh my.
So I bought the seat, but I didn't get confirmation for my booking. And so the next day, I went to the Emirates offices, and they were like, "You booked for this seat at the exact same time as someone else." And so the system gave your seat to that person, but they were able to get me on a different flight. And I ended up making it to orientation. So that was
Wow.
the
Wow.
crazy roller coaster. Oh,
Wow.
and it was just a rough time. Like, it was very much up and down, and but now I can say I'm very much experienced in terms of visas. I should start a consulting firm, actually.
Exactly right. I mean, oh my. Oh my. Oh, I do remember when I heard that you were actually coming, I was blown away. I thought, who is this kid who made this happen? Yeah. I guess
I had
that's an incredible story.
I had
Yeah.
so much
This
help
was
as well. So I got like so much help from Michelle, from my friends and family here. So it was also like a big help from them that I was able to make it. Otherwise, I would not have made it.
yeah. Yeah. True that you needed help. And by the way, we should probably mention for the listeners, Michelle was our director of travel and logistics, who was also capable of working many miracles. And at the same time, you were extremely resourceful in how you went about it, and persistent and all of that. So thank you for sharing that story. I love it.
Yeah.
And the next question I'd like to ask you is, could you tell us a story from your travels that left a deep impression on you, however you interpret that question?
Ah, there are many stories. I think I'll go back to one of my favorite regions, which was in Palermo in Italy.
Mm.
Um, I come from a country where I have been fortunately able to live like in peace. There's a bit of political stability. Sometimes it may waver a bit, but it's still very good compared to other African countries. And the thought of me leaving Kenya was, I think, the only reason I had thought of up to that point was studying. I had never thought that I would have to leave Kenya for any other reasons apart from that, maybe study or work, and that's it. But being in Palermo, and the theme of the fellowship in Palermo was actually immigration. And Italy, Palermo specifically, is like a gateway into Europe for people who leave North Africa and parts of the Middle East and try to search for a better life in Europe. And I remember I went to a store. I think I was with two other students. I think it was Leticia and Claudia, the fellow, was also with us. And I remember talking to the shopkeeper at this antiquity store, and he was telling us about how he had spent 2 months traveling from, I think it was Pakistan. I don't remember the exact sequence of countries, but he went all the way from Pakistan into Iran, um, crossed over into, I forgot the next few countries, but there were about 5 different countries. That was 20 years ago. And he was so excited to hear from people who are also from a different part of the world. He had fled because of some squabbles back home. He had to go without his family because the journey was so dangerous, and he didn't think his family would be able to make it to Italy. But he made it. He started working, and whenever he would work, he would send money back home. And it had been 20 years in Italy, and he had just got his citizenship the day before. And
Wow.
he was so happy that day, and we had barely met this guy, and he was telling us his plans and how he was planning to bring his family over finally after 20 years. And seeing not just his story, but other people's stories. For example, there were a few Senegalese restaurants that we went to, one in particular that we had met walking at night, and we had seen this woman who was teaching African drums. She was Italian, but she had learned about the Afro-Brazilian drums when she was traveling in Brazil, and she came back and she met her husband who had moved over from West Africa, from Mali, and they had started this really good restaurant. And so hearing and seeing the actual stories of people and seeing why they moved and the joy they are bringing and the value they are bringing to the community around them was such an essential part of understanding the world at large, because a big part of the world it's rotating, it's moving. So if the earth itself is rotating, if it's moving, people should be moving. People are moving. And they're not just moving for their own selfish or personal reasons, but there is a whole community, there's a family that gets to benefit from that movement. And I can't imagine Palermo without all the immigrants that I met. So that was, I think, a big lesson that really left an impact on me. I also learned to appreciate where I'm from, appreciate the privileges that I have had, and seeing that, I should really be grateful for what I've had around me so far. So I think that's one of the best examples that I think I can give.
Good. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And what I'm wondering if, do you feel as if it sounds to me, you can tell me if this is an accurate reflection of what you were just sharing. It sounds to me like part of why the stories made such an impression on you is they were causing you to question some assumptions that you might have had going into that, before going to Palermo, maybe conscious, maybe unconscious assumptions. I guess first, is that accurate? And if so, could you share a little bit more about what those assumptions were that you were caused to question?
In part, yes. I'll go back to where I'm from because in Kenya we share a border with, I think, Somalia, South Sudan, Ethiopia, and in the northeast of Kenya there is a number of refugee camps. I think if you go on the United Nations Commission for Refugees, one of the biggest refugee camps is, I think, Kakuma and Dadaab in northeastern Kenya. And I think because of the that was, I think, 10 years ago, we are having some issues in Kenya because of terrorism attacks from Al Qaeda, which is a terrorist organization in Somalia. And there had been a growing sentiment against immigration, citing that as a reason for stopping immigration into the country. I think before the 9/11 attacks in the US, there had also been bombing in Kenya of the US embassy. a lot of Kenyans and American citizens had died, and the terrorist group from Somalia had claimed responsibility. So in school, in on the radio, on TV, there were this really heated discussions about um, letting new members into the country and letting new people in. And when you're young, these things kind of build an impression on you, and you get swayed, and you start questioning whether this is actually right or is this wrong. And so I had really conflicting, um, um, I don't know, standards or about that. But you come to realize that those people are just looking for a better life, just like how you would go to a job and apply. You're not applying because you're trying to escape your previous employer, trying to tarnish them. You're just going because it's going to be a plus for the people you're close to, your family, your friends, and also where you're applying to. You're going to bring value there. So I think those are some of the I don't know if unconscious or conscious biases that I had, but I'm glad I got to figure out my own stance on it and my own reasoning about that. Yeah.
There was someone who came to our morning program, and once again for the listeners. So, in each of the home base cities that we stayed in, each of the 7 regions, most mornings and weekdays we had what we called morning program, where speakers would, who, with some expertise and experience in the region, would join in person or virtually. Give a talk, have an interview, something like that. And I recall, I think this was in Paris, that we had someone it was a woman who worked in an organization that was helping refugees immigrate into Europe. And I don't remember the name of the person. I don't remember the name of the organization. Maybe you can help me remember. But what you're seeing is aligning a lot with what she shared, which also spun my head around a little bit. Which essentially, she said something along the lines of, people moving around the world is normal. There's nothing strange about it, right? This is just something people do. And we have all of these stigmas that are attached to, immigrants. But it's just people moving. So why can't we just treat this as people moving? People move all the time.
Yeah.
Why can't we just try to make it easier for people?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Making it easier for people, I think, is the best solution to this, because people take desperate measures in critical times. So if you make it easy and accessible to move, you solve a lot of problems along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Really powerful reframing, especially now, we're recording this July 11th, 2025. My home country, the United States right now immigration has been a really complex issue for centuries here. And I think right now may be, in my lifetime, the highest point of stigmatization and demonization of immigrants to the United States. So this conversation feels very timely right now as well. And of course, with everything that's been happening for quite some time with immigration into Europe as well. Anyway, all of that to say, I really appreciate you sharing this particular story, because I think it's kind of timeless. And I personally have found it really helpful to be able to normalize it in the way that guest did, and now that I'm hearing you share. So let's start talking about how you've been learning and growing. So as we're speaking, it's been about 7 weeks since the program concluded. And as you've been reflecting on the year, what would you say are maybe the top 3 ways in which you have grown? With no pressure, it doesn't have to be like 1, 2, 3. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 5. maybe it's just something you want to kind of talk out with me. So yeah, interpret that question however you'd like. The topic being like your own personal growth, what you've been thinking about in the weeks since the program ended.
Yeah, I think phrasing it in the week since the program ended is important, because when you're in the moment, you're kind of overwhelmed or engaged mostly in whatever it is, whatever task you're doing, wherever you are, who you're surrounded with. And most of what I have learned has come after, especially with regards to myself and my own behaviors. Um, I think growing up, I had always had this um, plan in my mind. My parents are very, especially my dad, really pushes me towards being the best version of myself, professionally and academically. And my mom always pushes me towards being the best person I can be. And I remember also, I think I have to go back a bit, um, and start things a bit before Bury. So I had done high school, I had completed high school, um, and I had been among the top 0.03% in the country, in my national final exams. And I was like, wow, this is so good. I see the fruits of my labor. This is nice. And at that time I wanted to be a dental surgeon. So I applied to dental school. And when I got my results back, they were like, no, you're not going to you're not going to dental school. In fact, we were only giving 25 slots at the University of Nairobi to study dental surgery. And at that time, I was very confused. I was like, I had worked so much for this. Why is this not happening? But in that process of trying to figure out what to do, I got this amazing opportunity to study programming with an NGO then. It was called Directed. And after the training with the program, I got an internship at a firm in New York that does blockchain infrastructure. And that's where I got to learn about Beret from my boss, who sent me the book. And it's just this one example of this crazy alignment of things where you think one door is shut and you're kind of sad, like, why didn't this happen? But then it ends up leading to a bigger door that you didn't think would happen. Because I remember when I saw the book, I was like, this is crazy. You're telling me you can travel the world without being 60 and having slaved for 40 years in the corporate world. and upon joining Bury, I kept that that thought of my plans in my head, and I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to go to Bury, and uni is going to go this way, and I'm going to. I remember I had set my sights on Princeton, and I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to Bury. I'm going to apply to some schools in the US, and this is how my trajectory of life is going to be. And I invested a lot of time and effort, as one should, into trying to actuate my plans. But life is also not linear, and I out of, I think, all the schools I applied to in the US, I did not get into a single one of them. And I was
How many were there?
ten schools.
Mm.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, not again, not again. Like
Mm.
after all this, you think this door is going to open and then it's going to lead to much more doors. But that's not the reality of things. And I think many young people should realize that um, things don't go to plan. Things never go to plan. When they do, be thankful and take and go with that. But if they don't, um, what I've learned is not to let it get me down.
Mm.
I'm very much aware of what I'm capable of,
Mm.
and I'm trying to figure out another plan, which
Mm.
I think will lead to a much better life than what I had initially planned out, I think. Um, so if if something doesn't work out, you know, what defines you as a person is what happened to you. But I think what you did to make something else happen. Um, that's one lesson. The I think another lesson is to let myself find things out on my own,
Mm.
and build my own image of the world. I think, like the example on what I learned about migration in Palermo, um, what I learned about the different countries that I visited, whether it was the US, whether it was Brazil, France, or China, or India. There had been a lot of things that you've watched in movies, or you've learned from books and from the people that surround you, but you only get to know the true details of things when you actually go there and look for and determine things for yourself. So it's good for someone to go ahead and you know actualize it and learn about it themselves rather than from someone else. I think when you grow up, you get to watch movies, you get to read books about different people, different places. Obviously, the people around you have their own opinions on things. Um, all of that is useful in shaping like your own ideas and your own lens about the world. But the good thing about the world is that there's so much to explore and see. And if you only take a moment to do your own learning, to form your own opinions by going there, talking to people, seeing what they love doing, and see according to your own sense of self. Like what now that I've seen these people, I know these things. Now form your own opinions and not just rely on someone else's opinions, or your your parents' thoughts on things, or your friends' outlook on life. And it's important to do so. And that's one lesson that I've learned from Beret, because I've been all over the place with all kinds of people, and I've gotten to form my own impression on things, on places, what's good, what's bad, what's a gray area, because not everything is either good or bad. I think there are gray areas in things. So yes, that's another lesson that I think I have learned from this.
What I love so much just in listening to everything that you're sharing is that you're getting all of these lessons and internalizing all of these lessons at this point in your life. I mean, the wisdom that you were just sharing about things not going according to plan, and how do you adjust your expectations and adjust your actions in the face of all that. These are the kinds of lessons that most of us don't get until much later in life, if we get them at all. It's what strikes me is top 0.03%. That is, if my math is right, top 3 in 10,000, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
In it was in I was in the top out of okay, they don't really rank, but um out of like all the students who had an A in their final exams, there were about 1,000 students, and the total number of students who sat for the exam was about 800,000.
Mm.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Okay, so there you are at the the creme de la creme, right? The very very top, and yet you're still experiencing rejection and nasty surprises.
yeah,
Um, and look at what it led to, right?
yeah,
So wonderful lesson for everybody of every age, including mine and beyond. So you mentioned, your plans for the future. 0 out of 10 colleges in the U.S. What is next for you? What are your current plans?
yes. I'm currently in a moment of transition. I think but it was such an amazing experience, and it was so out of this world, and it is not was not normal. Like it's not everyday life. Everyday life is not what, but it was. It was something totally insane, but in a good way. Um, Coming back home, and you're trying to readjust now to everyday life again. Um, I was really looking into like what now that this has happened, what am I going to do next? Um, Thankfully, I got into engineering school at
Mm.
the University of Nairobi. So this fall, I'll be starting my uni. I'll be majoring in electrical and electronics engineering. But I'm also really interested in econ, so
Mm.
I might also minor in that. Um, I'm currently also in the process of building a personal brand. I have not I'm not very comfortable usually around like cameras and like uh, you know putting yourself out there. I like when I put myself within other people, not just show myself publicly. But
Mm.
in this age of trying to grow professionally, you have to try and put some effort into that. So recently, I actually just finished making my own website.
Mm.
Um, that was a fun project that I did over the
Mm-hmm.
last 2 weeks. I started a Substack. I started writing and like putting my writing out there. Um, and yeah, I'm currently working on an internship right now. It's on project management, so I'm getting a bit of experience in that. So I see myself as someone in like the technical field and building like really cool things, because I think one of the pleasures of being a human being is being able to create cool things,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing them like in life, like this that we're doing here, you like thought of coming up with a podcast, and you started it, and seeing it being actualized is one of the many pleasures that goes with life. And so I think engineering is a really good pathway for me, because I like building things and I like seeing things come to life. So that's I think one thing that keeps me going and will keep me going. Um, so yeah, we'll see where that journey takes me in terms of my short-term goals, my near future goals. But I'm looking forward to either working in tech, or like I have had this crazy ever since I started like in STEM. I had this like crazy idea of being a Formula One engineer, and just
Wow.
traveling around the world again. But
Mm-hmm.
this time, you're building like super fast cars. Um, But yeah, you never know where things will take you, and
Hmm.
that's something that it's something to find out. It's like reading a good book and you don't know the ending.
I love it. I love it. Well, if I were a betting man and I could lay down money, um, I don't know who I would be more confident to put my money on than you to make a dream come true.
Thank you
So
so much.
no, of course. It's just I've just seen you achieve so much. Um, starting with that amazing story that you told about getting a passport and a visa just in time.
Yeah, crazy, crazy.
Um, Final question. So this world that we live in, there's a lot of suffering, and a lot of that
Yeah.
suffering is caused by human beings, and it can be easy to feel overwhelmed. It can be easy to lose hope. Have you got any words of encouragement for us about the future?
I will say that one thing I have I think I'll go back to lessons that I've learned from the previous year. Um, in my opinion, the world is too beautiful to end. You see things in TV, you see things on the news, um, and you wonder like where are we really headed as humanity? Because um, there's so much suffering going on. There's wars, there's hunger. Um, you yourself might be going through a lot at a certain time. Um, Uncertainty is a part of life, but a certain thing, for me at least, is going to get better. I think there's going to be a time that's going to come where, as much as there are terrible things happening, um, and not everything will be picture perfect every day, but you have to live with the bright side of things. I know it's a little bit cliche to tell people, just look at the bright side of things. But um, if you count your blessings, if you see where you can improve as a person and what you can try and do to make a change, I think it helps clear out like the bad side of things. Maybe you're seeing there's a lot of war about a lot of hunger in your neighborhood. You can choose to be sad, but you can choose to try and make a solution to that problem. You can give, after every meal that you have, maybe there's leftovers and there's a homeless guy across the street that is going hungry. You might say, oh, there's so much hunger in the world, but maybe you can help be part of the solution. So I think looking at the bright side of things is not just ignoring the terrible things that are happening. You can choose to do something about it, and as you do something about it, you come to get joy from solving those problems. Um, that's one thing I think people should try and do more often. Um, you know, you can cry about it, but you can get joy from the bad thing that's happening. So I think that's one thing that makes me sure that things are going to get better because more and more people will try and do something. Yeah.
One
So
thing that I'm hearing in your response to this question is um, it's important not to pretend the problems aren't there and that the
yeah,
challenges aren't there. But what I hear you saying is it really has to do with the orientation that we choose to have towards that reality
yeah,
and not letting it overwhelm us, but letting it focus us and focus our choices in terms of what we choose what to do. Is that an
yeah.
accurate? Would you say that's an accurate interpretation of what you're saying?
Yes. Indeed, like it's the outlook that you choose on life.
Hmm.
Sometimes you might get spirals from the bad things that are happening to you. It's okay to have them, but eventually, you can't keep living in the shadows or in the dark side of things. Um, the light will have to shine through eventually.
Beautiful. Well, that's a great note for us to stop on, Dennis. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure speaking to you again, and seeing and hearing your face, and hearing.
Same, Dennis.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Dennis. If you did, please tell at least one friend about it. Give us a 5-star rating and subscribe to the podcast. That will help others find us. Until next time, let's keep our heads clear and our hearts open.